big time actors of that time, but I really don't know whom else could have really stepped into it. I don't even know if Sidney Poitier would have overpowered it, because I know, we know Sidney Poitier and we know the roles that he's done and what he's known for. So for him to have stepped into it and have been as quiet, I don't know if that would have been a challenge for him, because we always know him to be so, encumbering, and he takes up the room and he owns it so much. But with Ivan Dixon, there was a quietness that was just so rich with the little bit that he was doing and not doing, so to speak. But I really love this film. I was doing some research, like looking it up on Wikipedia and stuff, and they were talking about how it wasn't released but so many theaters. The distribution wasn't so wide. But once it was, remastered and put on DVD, it was received by a lot of people, and it's almost been a required screening when it comes to Black culture and socioeconomic differences and the things that we have to deal with up until this day.
Everybody, this is Petey. This is a spinner rack where we're going to do something different again. And ultimately, we, right now, before I introduce, obviously I'm Petey. We also have my friend David Roberts, D Black, a poet, actor. I want to get him onto being a writer also, and obviously he's strong. He could be a director too. I'm not sure if he has. We haven't talked about it, so he has some things in the theater. So can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Hey, everybody. As already stated, my name is David Roberts, actor, spoken word artist, and spoken word. I'll go by the name D Black, but a longtime friend and associate of Sam Barton. Happy to be here. Let's talk about these movies. Let's talk about culture. Let's talk about how a lot of the things that have been happening and affecting us back then are still affecting us now.
Yeah. So my only other thing is, say, when we were working on a film that didn't get made, but ultimately. I had written a script that had a very tough line that I didn't know how it was going to sound. It was something that I had interacted with a friend, and it was a sequence I had with a friend, and it was funny to me, but I didn't know how it was going to translate. Right. And I gave it was a side I gave to David. He read it and he added something. He pluralized the word in there, and it was just like it bowled me over. Like we fell out on the table, and he was so confident, and he was just like, "What is it? What else you want me to do? Where you want me to go?" And this is like, "Whoa, this guy! He's there." And then you want to see anyone else? Like, no, he's pretty good. So he's really good. So, and then also, I did see his one-man show. I said David's one-man show, and that really introduced to me, because I've seen him do a lot of different things, but the whole idea and the similarities in our backgrounds and some struggles and some upbringing and that sort of thing. So it was very interesting. His one-man show was very, I mean, that's something everyone should see, and he should do it more. I don't know if that's my last plug, but do you add anything in there? But definitely check out his YouTube. We'll have that up. And
let's talk equality unequal, similarities unimportant. My hue leads to questions that I find intrusive, like, where you heading this time of night? You live around here?
We watched a movie called Nothing But a Man, and this movie is Malcolm X's favorite film.
Wow, I never knew that. Okay.
Yeah, it's his favorite film. I'm gonna just go to my IMDb just so I can. Let me share the screen.
Cool.
So I can pull this up rather than it freeze. Let's see. Here, so we have the director, I guess it's Michael Romer, and then we also have Robert M. Young. That's one of the writers.
Yeah, I believe he was the DP as well.
Oh yeah, oh man, oh that's good to know.
Yeah.
And Ivan Dixon is the lead. I knew him originally from Car Wash, but he was in Hogan's Heroes. He's in, he did a film called Spook That Sat by the Door.
Right.
And,
my introduction to him was a couple Twilight Zone episodes.
Yes. That's what very strong voice. I was really impressed. I was like, wow, this guy really, that voice is strong. I was like, wait, this is the same guy from Car Wash? So now Abbey Lincoln is the love interest, but she's also a singer. Now I didn't know too much about before I knew this movie. She had this brief moment in this thing. Oh man, I don't have it, but she's in this Jane Mansfield movie, and my mother is the one who's like, I want you guys to talk about this movie. Like, she was a movie that she, as a young person, was kind of like, nah, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that sort of thing. It's going to be depressing. And this,
did she hear about it prior, or did she already know from the title that it was going to be depressing? Like, what, how did she?
She was just, from what she heard, she was just like, this is going to be one of those things. I think it was ultimately she was going to movies for like escapism and fun. And then she was like, this looks like it's going to be like something heavy. And she was just like a beeline the other way. And then she ultimately watched some interviews with Ivan Dixon. He said the only two things that he did in film in the industry that was good was this one, with Nothing But a Man, and Spook That Sat by the Door. So like that's from that she was like, oh, I'm going to, I need to see this. She also sent me this book about it, which I haven't finished yet. I just started, but she sent me this book. So,
What's the title of that book again?
Okay, so it's the politics and the poetics of black film.
Mm-hmm. When was that? I may need to pick that up. When was that written? When was the copyright?
I think it's recent. I think it's very recent. Let's see. Is it 2015?
Oh, okay. Yeah, pretty recent. Okay, yeah. I may pick that up.
So from there, she watched it recently. She definitely appreciated it, and she was one of those things where she wished she watched it when she was younger, because she knew him from Hogan's Heroes and this other thing. And she's like, oh, he has all this great work, and she's like, oh, all this stuff he doesn't like. So it made her decide to sort of watch it, and she was like, it's a strong film.
Yeah.
Now, to do a brief overview of the film, it's about sort of a train worker. He's a transient worker that kind of moves from town to town. Mm-hmm. We don't know too much about his history, but it has some people that we've seen before. Yaphet Kotal's in there.
Oh, yeah. And, from Superfly, Gloria Foster, Julius Harris's, I guess.
The Oracle. The Oracle.
Yeah, the
Oracle. Yes.
Oracle. That threw me. Yes. I saw Esther Roll as a background actress in the wedding. I mean, I was just sitting here like, wait a minute, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, so many, faces and names. The other brother from Malcolm X, when Denzel was getting his hair cut and the older gentlemen were all talking, he was like, I guess he was the antagonist in this movie. And I forgot the brother. I think he has the line in Malcolm X where he says, "Sassy, frassy." So when you go back to that opening scene where Denzel's getting his first conk, he's one of the old.
Yeah.
You can tell because he has that same birthmark on his, I think, right by his nose. So it was just good seeing all of those familiar faces. Of course, a lot younger, but I was like, oh wow, I recognize everyone. It just felt good. It just felt good to see that.
So his character is Duff Anderson, and he's kind of tired of being sort of transient, like moving around. Mm-hmm. He's not trying to deal with all the locals, and then he ultimately goes to church, and he sees someone that piques his interest. But as sort of this guy that moves around, he's just kind of saying, "Hey, we're gonna make out, or we're gonna get married. What are we gonna do here?" Right. And they sort of have their first brush of trouble on one of their first dates, where the white people in town they only half harass them because they realize she's the preacher's daughter and he's connected in town. So they're like, basically he's, in good with the people. So they're like, don't mess with her.
Yeah, they fall back because of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's still interested because she's a little more, I guess, a little more, not really spicy because she's definitely sort of the girlfriend, but she has an interesting angle on stuff that really catches him, and he's like thinks that he's thinking that she kind of looks down on him, but she doesn't. She always, you said you have a sort of a backwards way of thinking. So it's interesting to see their sort of courting thing where she's interested, but ultimately back then most people had to, you meet, or you get married. That sort of thing. You couldn't, you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. So most of the time you hear that, and that's across the board with white and black black couples. So ultimately he makes the decision, you know what, I'm tired of this. We can get married. They have a little thing where he goes into town. He goes to see his father, and that's when we see Gloria Foster and what's it?
Julius Harris.
Yeah, Julius Harris.
Character name, but yeah, Julius Harris. Yeah.
Yeah. So when he sees that, he sort of comes back because she's with him halfway through the trip, and she's like, "Hey, let's sort of get, let's do this." And you see them making their way initially, but they see across the way a family that's been in this new neighborhood that's been through it. That the husband is kind of beat down and all he wants to do is drink and sit out front, and the wife is just sort of giving it to him.
Yeah, she's fed up with him.
So, once they get to work, this is where most of the plot of the movie starts to change, where everyone is it's ultimately the hardest thing because it deals with the fact that you're underfoot. Like you're called, the black workers in the mill are called boys, they're treated lower than the white workers, and there's an added thing where the white workers could actually just take their food, needed to laugh.
Dude,
it's
so roomy. He just goes.
Yes.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. And just kind of like, I guess at that point, and also at that time, they kind of shrugging shoulders, and this is just the way things are. It's been accepted. It's kind of it's customary. We're kind of complacent to it. So this is unfair, but yet at the same time, this is the way things go. And why ruffle feathers if everybody's used to it already? But there was so much in this film. I started writing notes and stuff. So it talks about how status is important. It talks about how there were our intra-racial issues that we have as people, out of it only as just a color thing. It's also a very economic thing, and how a lot of times we may tap dance in order to do things, in order to get along, in order to keep our status, or in order to gain a status. And there were just so many quotes. Thank you so much for reminding me about this movie, because I only saw it once. I saw it once because the girl that I was dating, she had brought it to my attention, and I'd never heard the movie before. I'm like, nothing but a man, because for mine, it's an independent film. That's the way it was. That's the way it was produced, as well as distributed. So it's very under the radar unless someone brings it to your attention. So I looked at it, and I was just really, I was caught by it. And even though the movie moves kind of slow, especially for the average American cinema watcher, we're used to things moving at a certain pace. But when you watch an independent film, you're forced to sit there and just go on that journey at that cadence and at that pace and at that, whatever rhythm and frequency is moving in. Either you stay along for the ride or you just get off. But because of the fact that Ivan Dixon is just so gripping, and you really love his character, and you want to see, how does this turn out? Where does this go? Where does their relationship go? Where does the relationship with himself go? Because you see that he's going through things, and there's this son that he's kind of in the air about. Is it my son? I'm not sure, but even though I'm not sure, I'm going to still check on him. Then you have his dad, who's kind of on the outs, but he's still my dad, so I'm going to check on him. So he has these ties that he's not letting go of. He still feels kind of shaky about them, but he still holds on to him. He holds on to them, I should say. And he has such a strong desire for some means of stability. He wants that. He needs that. He knows it. He may not be fully articulate about it, but he knows that there's a need and a drive for that as a means of destination. So he sees this woman who seems like that that stable partner, that complementary partner that I can build a family and a stable life with. So he starts going in that direction. But, you know, once you start going in that direction, now, you know, as the man, you now have to be that provider. You now have to help build that foundation. You have to have the home. You have to have the finances, you know, food, bread, water, rent. Yeah, you know, you have to have things. And when it becomes hard for you to do that, you know, once again, air quote, as the man, you're going to start to question yourself, a man, because that's the social construct that we've kind of raised in, that if you're going to be, you know, capital M-A-N, then you have to have, you know, capital M-O-N-E-Y. So, and it reminds us of how much of what is tied into the social climate of how important money and finances are. Not only in supporting ourselves, but in us just being able to stand up and walk upright. And one of the things that I like about this project, which kind of is reminiscent of Raising the Sun. If you've seen Raising the Sun, one of the things that I love about this project that's very reminiscent about that piece is that it's a reminder of how, yes, money is essential. Yes, money is important, but it's not the end all be all. And his character doesn't run out and get, like, the ending of the movie is not Duff running out and getting a job, or him getting a job. You know, the ending of the movie is him getting his son, whether and I don't even know if at that time they had, like, you know, I don't know, whatever blood tests or paternity tests. I don't know if they, you know, had that stuff, or if they were as savvy with things as they are now. But regardless of what he knows or he doesn't know, he goes to get his son, you know, in the rain, you know, and all that, all those little deep. You know, it's not like a sunny day, like it was torrential weather, you know, and it's, you know, it's raining in the car.
Yeah, because it's terrible.
Yeah, so it's like all of that stuff. But he goes to get his son anyway. He brings him back to his wife. You know, they decide to build things from where they are. Things are still shaky, but at least they're together and things are shaky. And that's the point, as opposed to he got a job, he started saving money, and then he went back home. That wasn't the point. The point was that as the man that he was, where he was growing from there, and he was going to make it work, all three of them, especially since his own father passed away. I think that spoke volumes. You know, there was a lot of juxtaposition in this film, like the scene that you talked about where his coworker was getting berated by his wife because he, you know, he's good for nothing and, you know, all this other stuff. But then the scene right before, you see Duff and Josie kind of, you know, play fighting outside. So they're having a good time joking around, and then it just jumps to his coworker, you know, a couple yards away being dogged out by his woman. So it was just like, oh wow, it's like all this stuff. And the scene that caught me in the end, when, you know, when Duff does finally come home, it was just a couple scenes back where Duff leaves out, and he tells his wife that he's out of here, and that spoke volumes for me, because when I was younger, but my bullying experience wasn't like everybody else's. My as you said, you saw the one man bullying experience wasn't, you know, I'm getting, you know, popped in the face every day. My bullying experience is like, I could count, you know, maybe on two hands the amount of times that I was like physically accosted, maybe just one hand, the amount of times that I was physically accosted. But out of all of those times, there were times where I was either followed or someone would ask me something, and my anxiety would build up. So my bullying experience is more so the anxiety that I felt because of the situation that I was in, as opposed to someone actually physically hurting me. But the few times that I was physically hurt or harmed, that just sent my anxiety racing for everything else that happened that seemed like it would lead to that. So I'm saying that to say, when Duff gets up and he tells Josie, I believe, when he says, "You'll be better off without me," it's just like a lynching. If that spoke volumes for me, because at the time that I was being bullied, there was one time when I was actually physically accosted. My mom found out, and she thought it'd be best for me to not go outside for the weekend. I think that maybe happened like on maybe it was a Friday or a Thursday, and she didn't want me to go out, for the rest of the weekend, just to lay low. My mindset at that time was, if I can't defend myself, then I don't deserve to go outside at all. So literally from like third grade up until up through college, I literally just went to school, came back home, did homework, watched videos, watched TV, listened to the radio. That was my life after that one incident. There were other little incidents before that, but nothing like as physically damaging as that one time. So that one time just set the stage for everything else. So when he said to his wife, if I can't, provide for you, or if I can't, be the man that I need to be for you, then I don't deserve this life. So that spoke volumes for me. And I remember the first time I saw it, I remember actually crying when he said that, because it resonated to me in my own way. So when I saw it again, I was like, woo! Like, when you see that line, it's like, woo! I was like, okay, pause. let's take it in. Let's take it in.
Everyone, we look at ourselves and we put ourselves in the Duff part. Like, we think that that's what I'm gonna do, and that's what I do. Even in life, as you were talking about with the bullying, and that really struck a chord. At the same time, I didn't have the bullies in the sense that were beating me up, because I was always agreeable. So you could talk, you could reason, you could logic me out of stuff, and I wouldn't feel like I was taking this. I remember in high school in Tilden, it was supposed to be like in Samuel J. Tilden, supposed to be the highest crime rate school. So I was really like worried about it when I got there. And the only thing I really struggled with this guy, he asked me to wear my sneakers, because he came in with like valleys, and he was like, "Can I wear your sneakers to play?" Because I would just sit and do nothing. Because I was just like, let me just try to be invisible here. And he would borrow my sneakers in the day. Then a whole group of kids, they came up to me that looked like they were bigger than me, because I was very small. I hit puberty very late. They came up to me and they said, "Stop letting him borrow your sneakers." I was like, I thought they're coming to do something else. And they're like, I'm like, what? And I was like, I don't know the problem. It's like, just don't let him borrow your sneakers. He comes in there, he's like gallivanting. He's got his BVD outfit on there with basically underwear, but he's wearing them like clothes. And he's like, "Yo, can I borrow?" And in a nice way. And I was like, "No." And then he's like, "Why not?" I was like, "No." And then next, he's like, and then he looks at me and says, "Oh, you look like you're gonna cry." I was like, "I just can't do it." And I think ultimately he did push me at some point later, and I always held it that I wish I did something at that point. But I was just like, I wasn't actually hurt. It was pride. And then I was always saying, and I was so much small at that point. I just worried about getting beat up. And it's funny, the person who asked me to stand up, I met him years later, and I've always kept him in my mind. And the next thing you know, I'm like saying, I finally hit puberty, and I'm like way taller. And this guy who's short now, not the guy who bullied me, but the guy who told me to stand up for myself. And it's like things change, but that guy was very important to me at that point. I was seeing him, I was just like, and he said, "Oh, I saw you." This thing, he saw me someplace, and I was just like saying, "Oh, he got to see me more in my element, where like I had hair, I was driving around, this, that, and the other." At that point, when he saw me, I was about to lose my hair. I had all the hair, I had a ball on the back. So we're in the middle, but it was interesting seeing someone where you're at a different stage.
A couple of scenes later, for him to come back with his son, and for him to do the best that he could to rebuild and still be the man that he wanted to be. He didn't tap dance. He wasn't a bootlicker, and he was proud of that, and he should be. Even just as an American, if not as a melanated person, as an American, you should stand up to say, "No, I'm doing this the way that I want to do. This, that, and the third." As opposed to, "Okay, I'm gonna, go along to get along, and if this man wants to eat for my sandwich, and if I have to keep my head low in order for me to, keep this house, then that's what I'm gonna do." Duff was absolutely opposite of that, and he tried his best to promote that. I love the scene where I guess the foreman or the boss comes up to him and he's like, look, you've been telling my guys that you're trying to, unionize.
Yeah,
we don't need that here, boy. You need to, turn, and then to up the ante and tell him that he has to apologize to them, that everything he was saying was wrong. And I love the scene because once again, Ivan Dixon was just so quiet and strong. And I have a lot of respect for actors who know how to be a quiet storm. It's not something that needs to be a blow up or big. He just looked at the man, he looked at them, he turned to his locker, emptied it out, and he was out of there. And that was the scene. It wasn't a big old, guys, how dare you, it was none of that.
Yeah.
He just walked out with his integrity and his head held high, and I thought it was awesome. I thought it was awesome.
Well, that's one of the things that's harder in real life, because in a movie as a lead, you can say, well, I see the scene differently, where I get to curse out my coworkers,
Right.
I mean, the thing that was in Half Baked. F you, you're cool, that sort of thing. You don't get to do that at jobs because you don't want the story to go around that you're just a troublemaker. But at the same time, carrying himself with respect. So it's like, I'm not going to lower myself, but I'm not going to go low. And ultimately, that's the thing that leads to some of the struggle in the marriage, because he comes home and it becomes physical. And that's the hard thing, and that happens in America, of someone who's taking a job where you don't get any self-respect, can't say anything like the workers, and then you could turn into that guy who's sitting in the porch, or you could take some of that out on his wife, where she's still being there for him, she's still finding a way, and it's like also the pride aspect of him having to go home and then say, okay, I can work. Or I can go back to the school, and he's just like this is gonna really hurt me even more than I provide for you. And well, that's one of the things that that scene was very powerful, because it's ultimately had those glances from the workers, saying see what you're gonna do now, what are you gonna say to them now, what are you gonna do, and that sort of thing. Where ultimately at the end they realize that one of them comes and says, hey, that happened before, and we wanted to, basically, but they want to test them to see if he would hold up. And then it's you lose something there when it's I don't know. It's a tough thing, because most of the time in jobs it can be like that, where we don't, and especially back then, not as much now, but at the same time, it's really tough for me to see that, and then go to other jobs, and then situations where he knows his stuff, but ultimately he's trying to help the guy out the ditch. The guy's saying, "Oh, that something goes wrong," but things go wrong with with people, and they're like, "No, I know my thing." Whereas a person of color is just like, I need an apology. I need this, that, and the other.
Right. There's more to it.
I come with this mob to get you. Then the thing is not only, and that's the thing of which everyone's talking about, privilege right now, white privilege. And one of the things that people don't understand is, as far as workers we call boy, he comes to a new job and they just starting to call him boy from a mile away. And then that aspect, and then the guy saying, you just need to laugh at my jokes.
Yeah.
Funny or not. And then, hey, here's some, you got some food, I'm just going to eat out of your plate.
I mean, woo! Yeah. I mean, it was so many little things. And I love how I guess it was another foreman or a supervisor, he was calling out to Ivan, and Ivan was so in his work, he didn't even acknowledge the first couple of times that he was calling him boy. He was just in his work, and and either it was a choice of Duff being so in his work, or Duff not acknowledging that he is a boy. Either or, whatever direction was trying to be showcased in that scene, it just spoke relevancy, and he was just so strong, and he was just so different, and the fact that his difference was such a threat to them, the fact that yes, this guy's a great worker, but he's thinking differently from all the other workers that we have. That's a problem, because that can influence other people, and it just it shows how one person can make a difference, because that ripple effect, You know, when you look at the fact that Malcolm X says that this is one of his favorite films, that says something, especially when you see a character such as Duff, the way he's portrayed, and the fact that he does not back down, and the fact that he has one man has created such a stir and such an influence that says something. And I like the fact that he doesn't get beat up. There isn't a scene where he has to learn his lesson, or he doesn't get killed in the end. You know, it ends with him coming back home to his wife. He has his son in hand. You know, he was able to give his final respects to his father. We don't. I believe the mom passed away when he was young. Yeah. So that chapter in his book is closed, and he's doing the best that he can to write a new chapter and a better one than the ones that he's already lived.
That's one of the things with the father. That's going to be one of my big points, is that the father really made the tension that could be with. I mean, there's tension when your father's in your life, and there's tension when there's a strained relationship. And this, it can be the same thing, but it's that once you become an adult, it's like, what does this guy want from me? Like, what is my son here? Like, if he wants something, he feel owed something, okay, here's my girlfriend. Like, hey, like, you know, what do you think? And then it's like, he just tells him to get out of here. And then when he comes back, he's even in a worse way. And that's one of the things that I think it can be strong, because there's always going to be a rivalry, I mean, with fathers and sons in general, where you see someone that you still see as a kid, and that person is an adult now. And I think that was displayed. And I mean, most of the people that have the solid relationship where there's no tension, that's great. But at some point, they're like, you still see that person as a kid, or you see someone as, oh, this is someone who's old, and I lived my life. I did everything I was supposed to do, and then, oh, I forgot I had kid. And that's what he was going through with his own son, where he's like saying this son is abandoned by his mother because the mother has his own life. And then he's like, well, I don't even know if it's mine, but this kid is going to have nothing in this life. So it was a very strong moment to make the decision that I did lay with this woman. I'm going to take care of this kid. And the fact that his wife was very interested, even though she had a kid coming along, you see her light up when she sees son, because this is the part she wants every part of him, and she wants to learn more. So that was very strong. So I know on time we might be running close on time. Is there any other points you want to get to? I want to get to any of your points.
There's so many. I wanted to throw out the idea of maybe making a part 2.
Okay.
This does not feel like an hour long. We're not going to do just an hour and a half. This probably feels like a good 2 to 3 hour discussion, especially for anyone else who's seen it. Let's see, I got so many things here. Okay, let's get the small stuff out of the way. At the 59-minute mark, I do not think the ASPCA or PETA would have been cool with that cat scene.
Oh, when he puts the box.
I was like,
he's starting to show his struggle with it, so he's taking it out on the cat.
I was like, okay, this is going to fly in 1964, not 2020. It's not going to fly. We got a hard enough time with fur coats. That part was very, very interesting. It was sad to see him breaking the chair. I understood it. I understood it and I got it. But it was just a really sad thing to see. Once again, one of the words that really sticks out to me about this project is juxtaposed. There was a lot of juxtaposition. The fact that he pretty much is let go because he's defending his woman's honor, but then at the same time he pushes his woman when he gets home. So it's like all that stuff because the guy wasn't really getting to him. And I have to give that to him, you know, not only in the acting, but also the writing. Because when the guy shows up at the gas station, you know, he's digging on him. He's pushing his button, he's pushing his buttons. But he just, you know, he stands firm. He's like, 38 cents. 38 cents. 38 cents. That's, he's keeping it, fair and square, 38 cents. But then when they start getting on his wife, that's when it's like, okay. Now it's like, listen, dude, get out of here. Because now you've pushed the wrong button. So, then of course his boss comes out and he doesn't want to risk his business, so he makes his decision without even fully telling him. Duff kind of just steps out the way. He's like, look, I already know what it is. I'm out of here. Yeah. So he goes home, tail between his legs. His wife is, still by his side, but at the same time, she doesn't know the full story, that, it was in defending, her honor, that's what ultimately led to him making his decision. So he's just at that place of frustration, and he just, he pushes her down, and it was sad, but it was real, because it just reminded us he's human.
Sorry, does today's audience, can they accept that he pushed down his pregnant wife?
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
I'm sorry to push it.
If he even restrained himself, I don't think that would have flew well. No way. It's a different social climate. It's a different social climate. I think even with him wanting to struggle and take care of her, I think even that would be looked at as funny, today, which is weird. But I think, and I know I get crucified for this. I think there is a little bit more of a window now in regards to the things that a wife can do and still be considered a wife, as opposed to the things that a husband can do and still can be considered a husband or a man or a woman, whatever the case may be. And I think that those things, it would be kind of nice to sit down and unpack, where all that is rooted in, and what's that stemming from, and whether or not it's a plus and a minus for all of us, and whether or not it's helpful or not for all of us. So I think that there's a whole lot of unpacking that should be done there. Let's see. The Augusta rule. Oh yeah, there were lines in there that I loved. There were a lot of quotes. Said, "You can't live without trouble, can you?" That was a good line.
Yeah.
I think that it spoke truth. Duff is sitting in the living room, having that man-to-man with Josie's father, and Josie's father's kind of telling he's a preacher man. He's doing what he has to do. He's saying what he has to say. He's walking that tightrope in order to keep everything at peace, not only for himself, but for, I would have to say, for the Black community at that time, because he's a leader, at that time. Preachers weren't just preachers. Preachers weren't just leaders of their congregation; they were leaders of the town. Yeah. So he's a pretty looked up to type of man, and he's trying to. I guess he was either trying to give Duff some wisdom, or kind of trying to let him see things, from a different side. And Duff's just not that guy, and it's just so interesting that we don't really see much of Duff's history. Duff is just Duff, and we just take it on we just take it off the cuff that that's who he is, and that's who he's always gonna be. And the other line that I liked was at least she ain't married to no white man's nigga. Whew.
Yeah.
And I was like, said, at least she ain't married to no white man's nigga. You a half a man.
Yeah.
And then you were they married at the time, or was it still girlfriend and boyfriend?
No, they were married. He was struggling at work. He was saying you're making trouble, and you didn't marry. Like he hit Duff hard, and then he had that's the thing. He didn't just break. He's sitting down, and he basically hit him in the gut 2 times, and he has to concede a little to be like, hey, I have conceded to the white man a lot to get this, to be able to operate with no problems.
Right. And then your wife is in the kitchen, she's crying because y'all pretty much tearing each other up, and man, that was a big deal. But it just speaks to the character of Duff and how necessary it is for him to not only be a man under the definition of whatever the social climate is, but under his own definitions of integrity and what being a man is for him. Not he should be able to walk head high, just as just as high as anyone else. and he shouldn't have to, walk with head bended down just because that's the way of, that's the way of the land. He knows better. He knows better. He's gonna be his own man, regardless of what anyone says.
One of the ones that I think was powerful because his wife, she's very progressive. So he has a moment where he looks at the neighbor's kids and he said, "Hey, you want to have a whole bunch of pickaninnies?" And she
Right.
said, "Don't call them that." And it's the thing, like, she's already moved past not using terms like using the N-word, not using the terms that they've given to Black children and all this stuff like that. She's, her dialogue, you can see, obviously she's a teacher, so she has education, but her own approach to things is different. Even if she was afraid, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm afraid of the white man, but of the physical thing, I'm not afraid of them in general. When I see them, I don't, like tense up." That was another powerful scene, even though he balked at what she said.
Yeah. There was another one. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if it was the scene after the one you're talking about or if it was before. They're having their little moment, and I really wish I remember what the whole scene was about. But he says, she says to him, "Not if you see them for what they are."
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and I wish there was a little bit more after that. Yes. I don't know if it was because the writers were white. I don't know. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But I really wish that there was a little bit more unpacking as opposed to it being so abstract. I'm really spoiled as a cinema watcher. Sometimes I want things to be said as plain and as clear and as transparent as possible. And I thought that it was a nice line. I just wish that it was unpacked just a little bit more. Because when she says, I think he says, "Aren't you scared of them?" or something like that. And then she said, "Not if you see them for what they are." And I really wish I knew what she sees them, what she sees them as, or how she sees them as. And then that follow-up line, he's like, "You ain't never been a nigga, have you?" And it's like, it's like that. It's that thing. It's that gray area. It's those things that I talk about. It's those things that I'm against, but I understand. It's those things that I try to be selective with what battle I'm gonna fight whenever a statement like that is made. Because on one side, I get it. You feel that you are a nigger, but is the social climate and the construct that you've been born and raised into, and and there's so much pressure being put on you to make sure that you feel this way. But then on the flip side, there's always that part of it, like, you've never been a nigga because that's not the makings of you. It's just the situation that you've been put into. So whenever you're in any social construct, there's going to be characters. Even when you write a script, a lot of times when you look at a television show, even some movies, unless you're looking at something that's truly independent, more than likely you're looking at archetypes. You're not looking at people that are truly flushed out characters. You're looking at an archetype. You're looking at a guy who's going to be the leading man. There's going to be a leading woman. There's going to be a best friend. There's going to be there's going to be a vamp. There's going to be a mistress. Like it's just a whole bunch of archetypes, and you try to just fill people into these archetypes. You may add a shred of personality that's a little bit different from the archetype, but generally speaking, it's a bunch of archetypes. So I think when it comes to Black people in general, we've come to this understanding or this agreement, kind of like the father-in-law, where it's like, look, this is the archetype that they've given me. This is the archetype that works. I'm going to play it to the best of my ability and stop messing things up.
And then, it's almost like it's not even the town has given him his place.
Right.
He's like, this is what we do. But ultimately, it's interesting as a filmmaker that you have rivals, but you don't have enemies. Like the white man is almost the closest enemy, but these are people are just using their power for no good. Like they're not necessarily like the people that come on him in the gas station. They're trying to get him to lose the job, and they turn into, we're going to be the mob, and the guy attacked him outside the car. But ultimately, like his friends, there's not like, oh, these guys are great guys. There's tension in like Yaphet Kotto coming in there, and then
Yeah.
visiting, and it's just
Right.
like, hey, like you're like almost looking at him like you made a mistake. You're trying this life when you're
Right.
on the road in transit like us, you know, dealing with the town girls and this, that, and the other, paying off the town
Yeah.
girls and stuff like that. So,
It was I mean, his character. You know how they have like spin-offs of TV shows or movies? I wish there was a spin-off about his character.
yeah.
Because there was so much weight there. There was so much not said, and so much that I wish could have been unpacked a little bit further, because even when he's like saying goodbye to him, you know, after they all visit him, whatever, you saw that, right? He's like standing there, and it's like, yo, what is this dude's subtext right now?
Yeah.
There's so much inner monologue going on with this guy, just, from the handshake and him being there. Like, I mean, is he beating himself up and saying that, he's wrong for living his life? Or is he looking at Duff saying, yo, man, you're going about this the wrong way. This is not going to work. This is the worst, that decision you could ever make. Like, there's so many little things going on inside of Jocko, and even the name. I was like, who came up with that? Like me, maybe I think too much, but like whenever I look at certain things, I'm like, wow, this is a hell of a character, and he played it. He played it very smooth, very very interestingly. Like you wanna see more and hear more and see what's going on with him. But there was a lot with that character.
I mean, that's young Yaphet Kotto, but you can't tell if he's actually young.
No,
the greatest face ever. He has the greatest.
When he was 5, he wasn't young. I was never young. He speaks weight. He exudes a weight on camera, and he's always been that. And those are the things that's always been special about the thing that I've seen him do. But yeah, man. Where he's about to leave, and he says that it's just like a lynching. They may not have a knife, but that was pretty deep. And I think the ultimate thing about this film, one of the ultimate things, is that it speaks to how the socio-economics have been a lone destroyer of the Black hole. It can be, and it has been a lone destroyer of the Black home, and how it does, socio-psychologically lynch us. Because if we don't fit into, once again, if we don't fit into the archetype of being a man, or fit into the archetype of being a husband, then we don't feel worthy of it. At least a real man won't feel worthy of it, and we'll just step away because we don't feel that we're deserving of this title, because we don't feel like we're deserving of the title. Like when he goes to ask her for the $10 when she's in the salon, it was like, oh God. And he's like looking around, and he's like taking the money from the purse, and it's like, it makes us feel like we're kids asking mommy for money again. Yeah. So it's all that stuff, and it was just really, really done well. But I liked how at the moments that he had to humble himself, he did. But whenever the standards of him lowering himself was too much, he knew when to step away and not lose dignity completely. It's one thing to compromise, but it's another thing when you know that the compromise is too much for you to risk. Well, and I think, please.
No, I was going to add that there's an interesting thing late in one of the late seasons of Good Times. But Thelma has a quote where she's writing a play, and they keep making changes to it. They say to Thelma, Thelma, you have to compromise. And she says, compromise to a point. But sometimes compromise means surrender. And it was so odd for Good Times where they surrendered everything. They lost Florida, James, but this is the same thing with this character where he wasn't like he had compromised. He said, I'm not trying to get trouble. He did his work. Was respectful to his boss and stuff like that. He was respectful even asking for jobs.
Right.
But at the same time, he also wanted him to submit, which is kind of harder to ask a man to do. To say that you're going to be a boy. Like that's
right.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you just brought up a good point, especially since, you know, the word boy is brought up so much. Yeah. Like it's just this common knowledge and it was the culture, mm-hmm. you know. And once things become a part of the culture and everybody's kind of like just shrugging their shoulders, like why aren't you being a part of this culture? We're used to it. Why aren't you? You know, it's just that thing. And I just think that he did a really good job in standing up for what he believed in and just wanting to be the man that he wants to be. And that just said so much volumes, especially at that time. And to know that I believe Robert, I think, I wasn't sure, I forgot which is which, but I believe one of them was Jewish and the other was German, mm-hmm. the two writers. And I believe one had an experience from escaping from a Jewish concentration camp. Okay. So I guess that you know fed into a lot of the research, and he kind of juxtaposed that to the Black life experience in the South, because they did a lot of research by I guess they were asking questions and hanging around Black families in the South. At least that's what Wikipedia says. So that's where a lot of the backstory came from. But it was a very well done movie. I definitely think that it needs to be seen more. But I will say that there are some movies now, being with where I am in my life and also as an actor, there are certain movies that you need to see again mm-hmm. in different places in your life. Because the first time I saw the movie, yes, it spoke to me, but now it speaks even more to me. And now, like, I feel that I would like to go online and purchase the DVD and see what other, behind the scenes featurettes and stuff like that. Because I love watching stuff like that, and see how much more that will feed to me in regards to not only the story itself, but the impetus and the muse that inspired it, and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna end on that. I was brought to this film. I just remembered why I actually was brought to this film. I have mm-hmm. a constant struggle in looking at stuff when I was a kid or younger, or even earlier than that. Mm-hmm. That there's these actresses like Abbey Lincoln that you see online, and you're just like, why didn't this person have a career, right? So I'm gonna show you where I found this person at, right?
Spread the gospel, spread the word. So he ripped the manuscriptures, did the leader of the flock, and his music is my savior, and his rhythm is my rock. Spread the word, spread the gospel.
Now she's more of a plain Jane in the movie, but you can see this thing here. And as my mother brought up when we were talking about it, Jane Mansfield in the same dress. Like, why would they have the person in the same dress? But she, obviously you can see she's a very strong singer. But she's singing this spiritual song in this Jane Mansfield movie. She's like, what is this about?
Right.
So that's what I want to say. That's what brought me to this movie. And I'm glad I got here, and then also talking to my mom about it. So
yes,
we had a good laugh about that. It's just like, what is this about?
What's going on?
So yeah, but
is that what Bart? Is that how Abbey Lincoln got her start? Was she an actress first, or was she a jazz singer first?
I think she was a singer first, but I don't know much of her history. I was just more interested, like looking at someone like even like in who's stars that are on television, like who are like Michelle Nichols. Or like Bernadette Standish, like saying these people should have long careers as girlfriends, and you see they've had their things is like next to nothing, and it's like I know they've possibly done theater. That's the other thing that we don't always get to see. Maybe they've done theater, but it's also hard for me when you just like you look at like you're watching what is it like what's that show? What's Happening? When you see Jane Spencer growing up, and you're like, oh Lord. And it's like, put her in some movies. And they're still looking for the new face. So it's just like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
God, man. What I will say is that even if a child or a teenager doesn't fully get it, I think that everyone should watch this movie because it's just a strong depiction of persistence, determination, of how you don't have to buckle to subordination gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
If that sounds proper. I just think that it just speaks volumes to a person's dignity, mm-hmm. and how we need to have values and principles, and that's what we love so much about the Duff character. I was reading Wikipedia, and they said last minute they were gonna change the name of the film to Duff. I think Duff Johnson or whatever his name was, Duff Jacobson, something like that. Yeah. But I think they just stuck with Nothing But a Man. But I think Nothing But a Man is definitely the better move. But we still love that character, Duff. I think he's just a good example for many Black men to shoot towards, and to know that two white guys wrote it. That says something. It's good.
On I guess on Real Black, they have an interview with Ivan Dixon, and he talks about that it was almost documentary style, so it feels like they might have shot a lot of locations. Okay. Not really setting up that much, so like saying just you guys pass this through, and then we'll go into these real places. And then I think it was a Julian Harris. He had that moment where he says, "This place is like," he reacts to the place like like it's his place. He knows what it is. He's just like. He's not even happy with his own home. But he said they did write, they said they wrote these scenes, but they really were trying to get sort of the real experience. So, and it comes up with the performances. And that's one of the things where you feel like there's a struggle of being white, but ultimately these stories get developed with people. They don't just have it, like I think like in Monsters Ball, I think Boucher Wright helped develop the character that Halle Berry plays. Like people, they filmed those.
Get out of here. I never knew that.
She said that she was ultimately supposed to play the lead, and I wish I still had the interview. But
wow!
It's not on there, and she was
so she wait a minute. So what was her? I guess what was her title? Was she a associate? Like what was her title?
I don't think she even has something. She was just early with Lee and the production team, like talking about the character, this female, and she was ultimately, like behind the scenes. Thinking about her for the part or her being the part, but they were selling it on Angela Bassett. But then ultimately they took it because Angela Bassett is the only name I've heard ever before Halle Berry got the part. Like
me too, yeah.
Then I'm reading this and she was like, "Yes, I helped develop it." So like being there, maybe even just talking it over, that sort of thing, and people jotting things down, trying to get some. And then ultimately that's what writers want, unless you have a stilted sort of style that you want to do. You don't usually try to get to the heart of something without trying and have the performances. Like, like people say, I think in Malcolm X, let the spirit come through, like the spirit of it, and then the reality come there without just saying, well, it can't be, I think that's also what my mother was struggling with, like saying two white guys, oh no, they're not going to get the experience right. That's
right.
But I mean, I think, that's the thing. I think performance, however, developing the story, then then you can, the energy and then the spirit of it can get the reality there. But I think we did. I think we covered a lot. As my mother says, we got a lot accomplished.
Yes.
But even though we can go back to this, David had a very good idea about talking about Juice.
Yes.
Coming of age at the end. And he has a very interesting angle, and it very opened my eyes of what I was thinking about Juice and Tupac and Ernest Dickerson and Omar Epps and Cindy. So it's something that is part of my childhood, something that I looked at, and I think we should talk about that next. But check out Nothing But a Man. It's on Real Black on YouTube. They have an interview with Ivan Dixon. I'll have those in the links. I have David's information on YouTube on here, and definitely check it out and comment on what you think. Watch those movies, watch our thing, and come back and fight with us because we're ready to fight too. Now I'm ready to fight. No, I'm not just kidding.
Now we're bullies.
Yeah. But bully, bully begets bullying. I don't believe that. That means you wanted to. If you just like go out and start bullying, that means like I can't wait to find some smaller kids to start beating up.
Get out of here. Yeah, man.
Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, man. Good platform.
Spin the rack out.